It's the 1st of January, and to be honest, we need to talk. We need to talk about why we are so afraid of doing hard things and why doing hard things is going to completely transform your life in 2026. We as humans actually do better when life asks something of us. Not constantly, not traumatically, but regularly. And when we build challenge into our daily life, become more capable, we become healthier, we become more resilient over time. This shows up very clearly in real world data. I'm going to talk to you about a little study done on something called the blue zones. For those of you who don't know about the Blue Zones project, it's essentially the place in the world where people live the longest and healthiest lives. And some key things found in these parts of the world was that people do not optimize comfort, they do not avoid difficulty, and they do not hack productivity. Instead, they live their lives naturally, and this includes mild, constant challenge. Examples that they give: walking everywhere, often uphill, gardening well into their old age, cooking daily instead of relying on convenience, staying socially involved and useful, learning, teaching, and contributing across their lifespan. People aren't doing hard things for growth, they're just doing things necessary to keep them engaged. So when I talk about doing hard things, I'm not talking about doing something crazy that's going to challenge you every day, like running a marathon every day or whatever, like something really physically taxing and potentially harming to you. It's just taking the slightly more difficult option. Like I always talk about in the beginning of my glow up journey, when I used to go to work, when I was still working in corporate, I would get off the tube stop early so that I could get my steps up, or I would take the stairs at work. Minimal things, but these things compounded over time where you challenge yourself a little bit and just take the harder option as opposed to convenience, like ordering delivery. Like for example, I have deleted delivery and Uber from my phone in 2026. How long will it last? I don't know, but I'm going to try at least to inconvenience myself, she says, by not having those things at my fingertips to where I'm like, oh, I'll just do that. It's like, no, optimize your time, like take the slightly more difficult route, because what that does for your brain is invaluable. The outcome found on these people living in these blue zone projects was they had longer lives, better mental health, lower rates of chronic disease, and a stronger sense of purpose. Difficulty wasn't avoided, it was integrated into their daily life. Studies in psychology have been showing that people who engage in challenging activities develop higher resilience, better stress tolerance, and greater life satisfaction. And that people who believe effort improves ability perform better long-term than those who rely on talent alone. Why? Because it teaches you effort. It teaches you how to recover, to adapt, and persist. And life rewards people who do not collapse under friction. And this was actually something I was talking to my dad about the other day. I was talking about what we're going through with my mum and like all the things going on with that. And how I think going through challenging things will happen to us all at some point in our life. Obviously, we wouldn't have hoped it to be this challenging, or for me, I wouldn't have hoped it to be this early on in life. But I think the resilience that you develop through going through hard things teaches you, okay, it's how you respond to these situations rather than these situations. Because in life, things will happen that are really difficult. And I think how you can respond to that based on how you've responded to hard things before will compound and help you build a kind of strength and resilience for when these things hit you out of left field. And I'm not saying it makes them easier. I'm just saying it allows you and your nervous system to kind of deal with them in a better way. Because, okay, here's a scenario. When you only do what's easy, things that feel like more of an effort or more difficult or just out of your ordinary are perceived as threat, because our brain doesn't know the difference between good and bad. It knows need, and what it needs to do is what it's always done, and what it's always done is the comfort of where you've been. And that's why growth and new habits and New Year's resolutions can feel really difficult, because we're coming at it from a fresh perspective and our brain goes like it signs an alert because it's thinking like, I've never done this before, because again, doesn't know good, bad, it knows need, and it needs to keep you alive by doing what it's always done. Discomfort starts to feel like a danger, because when you regularly do hard things, that effort becomes more normal. That discomfort stops feeling like a danger, and you really become addicted to that progress. This is why I always say to people, like, do a sport you're bad at, learn a new language, learn to code, just learn, just like read a book that you find slightly challenging. It also builds mental flexibility, which is something I'm especially interested in at the moment. When you build mental flexibility, your ability to stay calm when things don't go as planned is massively improved. And ultimately, that is life. Things are going to happen that come out of left field and shock us. And we need that mental flexibility to be able to do with those things and not just completely crumble under pressure. There's also been research on aging that shows that older adults who continue learning difficult skills, so languages, instruments, complex hobbies, maintain better memory, faster thinking, greater independence, and that passive entertainment doesn't protect the mind. So you're scrolling, you're watching film, you're watching TV. I'm not saying these things are defunct or that you should not do them and that they're all bad, because I really think there is a place, obviously, for film and television, for culture, but also for scrolling, because if you're using scrolling in a productive way, for instance, I use social media to learn, to educate myself, and occasionally for entertainment purposes. But what I'm not doing is using it as a tool through which to compare myself, to compare my life, to compare my body, to compare my career, because that is when it can be incredibly damaging. And that your brain stays sharp when it's asked to do work. Again, this doesn't have to be through lots of different difficult things. It can just be 10 minutes on a hobby a day or taking the longer walk to work. Another consistent finding was that people who experience manageable stress regularly cope better with major stress later, which is what we've kind of spoken about. And this is sometimes described as stress inoculation, and that people who exercise, tackle different projects, learn hard things, handle career pressure better, emotional setbacks more calmly, and uncertainty with less panic. That avoiding difficulty makes stress feel overwhelming, but practicing difficulty makes stress feel familiar. So our brain's kind of like, we've done this before. It's okay. We're going to be good. Another interesting aspect found in this Blue Zone study, and I suppose this is not necessarily relevant for a lot of my audience now, but if you are slightly older or if you're just thinking about your future, these long-lived fulfilled populations don't retire from usefulness. So they might retire from their jobs, they might retire from their work where they earn money, but they will still help their family, they'll teach younger generations, they will maintain responsibility, because research shows that people with a strong sense of purpose, and that applies to every single one of us, live longer, recover faster from illness, and have lower depression rates. So hard things give you evidence that you matter, essentially. And I think we could probably all apply that to our lives, because I think that sense of purpose, that sense of mattering is what gives us our reason to be, and our reason to kind of not go through struggle, but our reason to kind of go through life every single day and wake up in the morning. This really isn't about me saying you need to suffer and you need to do hard things. What this is really about me saying is, if you live with regular chosen challenge, this builds you to be able to handle reality and the things that do get thrown out of left field. And if you have that resilience built up and that kind of discipline, when life gets busy or when life gets hard because of external circumstances, you are greater equipped not only to deal with it, but to carry on with the things that you know make you feel good, because they are so automated now into your neural pathway, into your basal ganglia, that kind of automatic loop part of your brain. It reminds your brain, I can adapt, I can learn, I can do hard things, which is fundamental for life. And that belief, I really think, changes everything. Going into 2026, I think we're all a little bit afraid to kind of say, like, this is my year, this is going to be amazing. But I think in knowing that doing hard things, and some of the examples I gave earlier, like really not crazy difficult things, but just sometimes choosing the slightly harder option. Maybe instead of ordering a takeaway, you're going to make a meal from scratch. Maybe instead of, I don't know, driving to work, you're going to walk a bit more, or you're going to get off the tube stop early or the bus or whatever it might be. In picking that slightly harder option, the resilience that we build up in ourselves isn't going to make things that come out of left field this year less bad objectively. What it will do is allow us to better handle those situations, to be better equipped, so that they almost go over your head a little bit, because it's like, hang on, I can do hard things, and your brain knows that. So when these things happen, you think, okay, I've got the tools to deal with them. So in a way, whatever's going to happen this year, and I wish us nothing but the most abundant, fruitful, successful 2026. But what we can at least do, based on the last few years of what's gone on, is be prepared for certain situations that might come up. And I wish I'd known this 4 years ago or 5 years ago when I started on this whole glow up journey, because if I'd known then what I know now, I think not only would I be much further along on my journey, but I would have been much better equipped to deal with the hard things that happened. Wishing you all the most love, the most light, the most wonderful, abundant 2026. We've got this. If you are not joining my workshop on the 4th of January already, I'm going to leave the link below and you can join. And let me know what you thought of this video, because I want to use YouTube this year as a platform to really dive deep into the things that I feel really interesting. So whether you've got this on when you're doing your hair, doing your makeup, getting ready in the morning, getting ready to go to bed, maybe you're on your morning commute, wherever you are listening to these little sound bites of information, I hope you have learned something useful. And I hope this has provided you with some value in your day, because I find social media right now, trying to be like really quick and like snappy, difficult to get everything into one place. So this is where this year we're going to really use to learn and dive deep. So let me know what you thought, and have a gorgeous rest of your day.